Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kristen, and in today's video, we're going to be talking through my top 10 favorite books of 2021. I am super excited to talk through my top 10 favorite books of 2021 with you guys. I managed to read 85 books last year, so making my top 10 list was both hard and easy for me. Easy for me, of course, because I automatically knew like my top 5 books of the year. Like I've been thinking about them all year, so of course they're gonna make my list, and y'all should be able to guess what a couple of those are going to be. But then it became hard trying to choose which of the other 5 books I was going to put on this list. I read a lot of good books. I had an overall really good reading year. Of course, I read some average books, some bad books, but overall, most of my books were either a 4 or a 5 star, which is very exciting. But it did make it a little harder for me to choose my top 10 because I wasn't sure what I wanted to include and what I wanted to not include. But I am happy with the 10 books that I did end up choosing to make my top 10 of 2021. And so how I'm going to do this is go from 10 to 1. So if you want to know what my top book of the year was, you're going to have to watch all the way to the end to find out what that book is going to be. A few of these books are going to be pretty obvious for y'all who have been subscribed to my channel for a while now because I talked about these books a whole bunch already. So this is just a time where I'm going to talk about them again and just wrap up all of my thoughts that I have on these books. My 9th favorite book of 2021 was Black Sun by Rebecca Warrenhorst, which I gave a 4.5 stars. This was a great introduction to epic fantasy for me. I am just getting into like adult fantasy, adult epic fantasies, and this was one of my first ones I've ever read, and it did not disappoint. I absolutely loved this book. So this book is set in the holy city of Tova, where the winter solstice is coming. But this year it coincides with the solar eclipse, which is a rare celestial event and is said to be like an unbalance of the world. At the same time, there is a boat set to arrive at Tova in time for the solstice. And on the ship is just one very important passenger. He is young, he's blind, he's scarred, but he's full of destiny for this city of Tova. Honestly, there's so much that's going on in Black Sun. There's really not like one great synopsis that you can give for the book, in my opinion. So all I can say here is read the book and find out what happens for yourself. It's definitely not a waste of your time to do that. I would definitely hop on this Black Sun train, read the book ASAP, because the second book is coming out this year, I believe in April. So you have plenty of time to make sure you have Black Sun read in time for that release. But reasons why I loved Black Sun. First, the world building was just amazing. That's the only way I can describe the world building. Like, it's just so creative, so unique, so many intricacies involved in the world. But Rebecca does not like throw a whole bunch of facts about the world at you in the beginning or anything, not a lot of world dumping. So you can definitely ease into the world and not feel overwhelmed with all of the rules and the culture and everything that goes on in this world. This book is definitely character driven. There are so many characters, so many POVs included in the book. So we're hearing from Serapio, who is the young harmless man being brought by ship to Tova. We have Ziala, who is the captain of that ship bringing Serapio to Tova. We have Narampa, who's the sun priest. We have other priests who work with the sun priest. There are leaders and matrons of the other Sky Maid clans. Just a whole bunch of characters to the point where there is a character list included in the front of the book, which is very helpful for me, especially for referencing who different people are if I forget during the book, and it'll come in handy when the second book comes out. I'm already knowing, so I can remember all of their names and all of their roles in the book. The politics in this book are very interesting and very intricate, complex. There's so many different things going on. Lastly, I just wanted to talk about the ending. The ending is what absolutely sold me on this book. It's what made me give this a 4.5 stars, because what the heck happened in the ending? I have no idea what to expect from the second book because I don't understand what happened at the end of the first book. There's just so many questions I have. That type of cliffhanger will always lead me to giving the book more stars and more enjoyment. So if you love cliffhangers, if you love political intrigue, if you love character-driven stories, then I would definitely recommend Black Sun. And I just think this is a really good introduction into epic fantasy, adult fantasy, if you are trying to get into that in the new year. So my 8th favorite book of 2021 is going to be People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I also gave this a 4.5 stars. People We Meet on Vacation is a friends to lovers romance. We are following Alex and Poppy, who have been best friends since college, and every summer they go on a trip together. This has been their friend tradition up until 2 years ago when something happened that ruined everything. One day Poppy is asked the last time she was truly happy, and her response was when she was with Alex. And so she convinces Alex to go on one more trip with her so they can lay everything on the table and make everything right. So I remember picking up this book due to the hype it was receiving in the book community. Everybody who picked up this book that I was seeing was really enjoying this book. I got a book of the month edition. I did not choose this as my book of the month pick. I can't remember what book I chose over it, but it was not People We Meet on Vacation. I ended up getting this as an add-on for the next month because I really wanted to read this book at that point. Good thing I did, because look, it made it as number 8 on my top favorite books of 2021. So I am not mad at this decision. There's not too much to say about People We Meet on Vacation, except for the fact that it's cute and I loved it. I haven't read many friends to lovers type of romance books, so I was interested to see if I would like this trope or not. Turns out I really do. I just love Poppy and Alex's friendship, first of all. They are a perfect match, definitely as friends, but once they started realizing that they might like each other more than friends, I began to love them more because they already work so perfectly as friends. I couldn't see why a romantic relationship couldn't work between the two of them. I get it, like that's your best friend. You don't really see your friends as anything other than friends, but sometimes something just happens and you realize that you do love this person more than just a friend, and that's okay. That just makes a beautiful relationship type of story, in my opinion. The bottom line is that I loved People We Meet on Vacation. I loved Poppy and Alex's relationship, and I loved the idea of friends realizing that they like each other more than just friendships. My 7th favorite book was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, which I gave a 5 stars. Now, I know Colleen Hoover can be a controversial topic in this book community. Like, you either love her or you can't stand her. And I don't know where I fall on that line yet, because It Ends With Us was my first Colleen Hoover. So I loved that book, but I don't know if I'm a Colleen Hoover fan or if that is like the best book that she's written. So stay tuned to find out if I read more Colleen Hoover this year in 2022. In It Ends With Us, oh my goodness, that's a hard thing to say. In It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, we are following Lily, who has not always had the easiest life. She has come a long way from the little girl that she was in her hometown of Maine. She's graduated from college, moved to Boston, and started her own business. One day she meets this gorgeous neurosurgeon, Ryle Kincaid, and they start this long relationship between the two of them. Lily begins to question this relationship she has with Ryle, and thoughts of this relationship is bringing up relationships from her past, her first love, Atlas Corrigan, who ends up re-entering her life as well. So it's just a mess of Lily trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life and who she wants to be with at the end of the day. This book was just sadly beautiful. That's how I have to describe it in one sentence, because I went through all the emotions in this book. I listened to this on audio and man, that was heavy. I would have to warn you to be in a mood to read something heavy, something sad, something emotional if you want to like listen to it in your ears as opposed to reading it physically. I mean, still reading it physically, be prepared for all that as well. But I feel like listening to somebody actually like talk it out, act it out is a little bit more intense than just like reading it yourself and having the words in your head. Also, there's trigger warnings for domestic abuse in this book as well. Definitely be ready for that topic. If you don't want to read about that, don't pick up this book because that's a main focus. Now, you might be asking me why this sad book is one of my favorites of the year, but honestly it is because of the emotions it got from me. Like a book that can have me engrossed and immersed in the story, especially while listening to it on audio as opposed to reading it physically or ebook, that just tells me that this is a really good book. I was able to empathize with Lily as well as with Ryle and with Atlas. And I just didn't know how I wanted the book to end as a reader. I wanted everybody to be happy at the end of the day because all of the characters in this book have gone through a whole bunch, and I just wanted everybody to win at the end. And I loved the ending because it was something that I was not expecting. Like in a lot of books, we just see the relationship kind of patch everything up and everything is a happy ever after. But in this book, it was not necessarily a happy ever after in terms of Lily and Ryle's relationship. I feel like the decisions that were made at the end of the book were the decisions that needed to happen for the characters. So I am happy with the way the book ended. Although it wasn't all flowers and roses and singing songs, because that's just not how life is sometimes. And I really wish more books, especially romance books, understood that, because no, not all relationships that we enter are perfect. Yes, all these romance books have their miscommunication tropes and then they just talked it out in the end and everything is great. But some of these problems that happen in relationships cannot be solved with the quick little 2-minute conversation at the end of the book. Like, come on now. If you're in a mood for an emotional read full of just like so many ups and downs, then I would recommend It Ends With Us. But yeah, It Ends With Us. That was book number 7 of the year. My 6th favorite book of the year was Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. In this book, we are following Evie Thomas, who does not believe in love. And one day, the strangest thing occurs to Evie. She witnesses a couple start to kiss, and she is overcome with the vision of how their relationship started and how it will end. As Evie is trying to find out what is happening to her, she finds herself at a dance studio where she meets X. X is everything that Evie is not. He's adventurous, he's daring, and his philosophy is to say yes to everything, including entering a ballroom dance competition with Evie, a girl he has just met. Evie does not want to fall for X because she does not want to be heartbroken, but in the end, Evie is left with the question of if love is worth the risk. I would just start to say that Nicola Yoon did it once again. Every time Nicola Yoon releases a book and I read it, I love it, no questions asked. I loved Evie and X independently and especially together as a couple because they are meant to be. I love me some good banter in a romance book, in any book really, but especially in romance. And Evie and X definitely had that. We can see and understand why they end up falling for each other in the end. I also appreciated the setting of the ballroom dance competition, bringing them closer together, and especially their dance instructor who kind of forced them to go on like a date and get to know each other, because they started off kind of like as enemies. Like it was giving enemies to lovers vibes for me. So they were forced to go on like a get to know each other date. And that's when they started to realize that, hey, they have some things in common. They actually like each other. And that's when that relationship starts to form. So I enjoyed following them along on the journey to get to know each other. I enjoyed having a peek into their dance rehearsals and getting ready for this ballroom dance competition. I love dance, and so to see that in a book, especially with Black characters and doing ballroom, which is not necessarily something you automatically think when you think Black people. So I enjoyed seeing them flourish in that specific dance genre. I remember everybody was talking about the fact that Instructions for Dancing was sad, and I was like, how is it sad? It does not sound sad at all. But then reading this book, I realized exactly what y'all were talking about. And I will not lie to you, this book almost made me cry because I was not expecting what happened to happen, and I hate it here. I truly hate it here. But at the end of the day, this book has so many lessons in it, including live in the now, live in the present. Don't worry about your past. Don't worry about your future too much, because then you're going to miss what's going on in your present life. And that's what you need to focus on, because that's what's going on right now. And the only thing that you necessarily have control over is what is happening in the present. So if you're somebody who struggles with worrying about the past, and maybe you're not even happy with where you are right now in your present, I would definitely recommend reading Instructions for Dancing, because it really did a lot to my soul. Even though this is a young adult romance novel, this book will definitely stick with me for a very long time. All right, so it's time for my top 5 reads of 2021. And coming in at number 5 is going to be Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I, of course, gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved this book so much. In Kingdom of the Wicked, we are following 2 twin witches. One of them is brutally murdered. The other one, Amelia, is set out to get vengeance for her sister's murder. Soon, Amelia meets Wrath, who is one of the wicked princes of hell. And Amelia has been warned against these princes of hell since she was a child. And still, she finds herself partnering up with Wrath because together they could figure out who murdered her twin. I knew I was going to love this book because I love reading books about witches, but I did not know I was going to love it to this extent. Carrie Maniscalco's writing is amazing. This was my very first book written by her. I have yet to read the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, so this was my introduction to Carrie Maniscalco, and I love her writing. It's so descriptive, it's so immersive. I found myself actually being able to visualize and picture myself in this world that she has created. Also, Amelia's family are chefs and own a restaurant, And every time that she was talking about the food that they were making made me hungry and I wanted to eat something. And of course, the main focus here was the budding romance between Amelia and Wrath. Of course, this is going to be an enemies to lovers type of novel, which I guess is one of my all-time favorite tropes, because a lot of the books in my favorites of 2021 ended up being an enemies to lovers type of relationship vibe between the characters. So I'm starting to understand my reading taste a bit more this year, which I'm loving for myself. But yes, the romance between Amelia and Wrath were perfection. The banter between them was amazing. Like, that was some banter. I know I'm talking about banter a lot, but that takes the cake with banter that I've seen in a relationship of all the books that I read in 2021. And although I found some of the plot to be a bit slow in this book, because at the end of the day, we're just trying to figure out who murdered her twin sister, and I'm like, can we just get there already? I still enjoyed the ride to get there. The ending had me shook because I was not expecting that at all, and it made me so excited to pick up Kingdom of the Curse that came out back in October, I believe. We'll talk about that one because it did not do it for me. But we're focused on Kingdom of the Wicked, which did do it for me. It gave me all of the vibes. It gave me what it was supposed to give, and I will forever love and recommend this book. My fourth favorite book of the year is Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Ayamide. I originally gave this book either a 4 or a 4.5 stars, but I'm definitely rounding that up to 4 because after I read this book, I could not stop thinking about it. And every time somebody else read this book, I started thinking about Ace of Spades again. And so I'm like, this is definitely a 5-star read. I don't know what I was thinking. In this book, we are following Devin and Chiamaka. They each have their individual secrets that are being brought to light at this private school by an anonymous texter named Aces. Someone is out to get Devin and Chiamaka and destroy their reputations, destroy their futures, and everything in between. And Devin and Chiamaka have to team up and figure out who Aces is and stop them before they absolutely destroy their lives. This gave me everything that I needed in a book. It was so scary and it was just so good. Chiamaka and Devin are the only Black students at this all-white private academy, which is scary by itself. I remember reading this during a 24-hour readathon and scaring myself. Like, I literally was scared reading a few of these scenes because I did not know how it was going to end. It seemed so real. I wanted to jump into the book and save Chiamaka and Devin because there was just some out-of-pocket things happening. There's so much I want to say about this book, but I can't because then I would be spoiling the book, and I want everybody to read this book. Unfortunately, to some extent, this is the life that some Black students have to live to get a quote-unquote good education and to get opportunities that our white counterparts sometimes don't even have to try for. It's just kind of handed to them due to privilege, due to money, due to their upraising, due to their backgrounds, whatever the case may be. They just sometimes have it easier than Black people. That is what Devin and Chiamaka are going through right now, being the only 2 Black people in an all-white school. I think that turning that very real thing into kind of like a thriller book is very interesting and very unique because it is scary to be the only Black person in the class. So this book was firstly very well written. It scared me. So that thriller aspect really did its job there. For this to be Farida's debut novel, I'm scared. I'm scared for our future because she's going to dominate. And I'm just so excited for more of her stories to be released into the world. They are very, very much needed. All right, y'all. So we finally made it to my top 3 reads of 2021. And my third favorite book of 2021 was Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I would just say that Book of the Month really chose some good books for their picks because 3 of them babies have made it into my top 10 reads of 2021. In this book, we're following 28-year-old Grace Porter, who has just finished her PhD in astronomy and is kind of in a life slump, trying to figure out what she wants to do next with her life. One thing for sure is that she is not the type of person who goes to Vegas and gets drunk married to a woman, but that's exactly what she does. So now Grace is newly married. She is trying to escape the expectations of her very strict ex-military father, and she's struggling the feeling of burnout, all while trying to figure out her next move in life. I love this book because I could totally see myself in Grace's character, especially during the time that I ended up reading this book. I was going through a sort of life slump, a life burnout, trying to figure out what I wanted to do next in life. So this book came to me at a really perfect time. I have very high expectations expectations of myself. I have a life plan, and at this time it wasn't really going the way that I wanted it to, or I guess thought it was going to be at that point in my life. So I was struggling with that, of my life not going the way that I had planned it to go. I just really loved Honey Girl, and seeing Grace struggle with kind of the same things that I was going through, and then seeing her overcome those obstacles by the end of the book and having that self-love. And she ends up going to therapy, and I was like, okay, Grace went to therapy, so I need to go to therapy. Like it was crazy how good this book was and how perfect of a time it came to me. Yes, this book was pitched as a romance, but the romance in this book was not the main focus, which is why I haven't even talked about the romance in explaining why this was my favorite book. This book was definitely focused on Grace and her journey into more self-love and overcoming her obstacles and battles in life. That's what this book is about. It's not really a romance. So if you think this book is a romance, you might be disappointed and might not like the book as much. But if you go in there knowing that it's really focused on one character's journey into figuring out what she's going to do in life, then maybe then you will like this book more. So yes, Honey Girl is coming in as my third favorite book of the year. And isn't the cover so beautiful? My second favorite book of 2021 was Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Austin, which of course I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm so freaking excited for the second book to come out in May. In this book, we're following 13-year-old Amari Peters. Amari's older brother, Quentin, has mysteriously disappeared, and Amari is determined to really figure out what happened to her brother because she refuses to believe that he just up and disappeared. One day, Amari discovers a ticking briefcase in her brother's old closet that is just meant for her eyes. When she opens this briefcase, she is introduced to a whole new world, and she is given a nomination for a summer tryout at the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. When she gets to the Bureau, she realizes that everything she thought was a fairy tale is real. So mermaids, witches, magicians, everything of that sort, they are real. So Amari must compete against a whole bunch of kids who grew up knowing that this world was real, and so she's at a disadvantage. But at the end of the day, Amari is there to figure out what happened to her older brother Quentin, and she is not going to stop until she has all of her answers. I have not read nearly as much middle grade as I want to, but I swear if all of middle grade is similar to Amari in terms of levels of enjoyment, like I might become the newest middle grade fantasy biggest fan, because I loved this book so much. It was so interesting. I wish we had this type of material when I was growing up, because I would have loved reading even more than I already do. Similar to how I felt about Kingdom of the Wicked, I really enjoyed B.B. Austin's world building in the story. I felt that I was at the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs with Amari and all the other characters. Amari is very strong-willed, and she does not let the haters hate on her. She does not let that hate get into her and ruin her vibes. Also, the plot twist at the end had me shook. I did not see the plot twist coming at all. My jaw was on the floor and out the room. I also love how the topic of bullying was handled in this book. Amari goes through so much. Even before she was introduced to the magical world, like her regular school, she was being bullied there. And then when she gets to the Bureau, all of the kids who grew up knowing about magic and this magical world, they were mean to her as well, because she didn't know anything and she didn't have any powers, anything like that. So they were kind of confused as to why she was there. But at the end of the day, Amari knew who she was, and she continued to stand up for herself over and over again and did not let the bullying get to her. So overall, just a very cute, enchanting, engaging, immersive, magical book. It's so fast-paced. You can finish this in a day or so, even though it's kind of a chunker, but so quick because you don't want to put this down. So go and order it now. Go get it from your library. Go get it off of Libby or Scribd or something, because you need this in your life. I promise you. Time to talk about my number one favorite book of 2021. We all know what it is already. I'm already knowing you guys are with me in understanding the book that I'm about to talk about right now, because I have talked about it so much. Number one on my list, top favorite book of 2021 was Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. I have a dedicated review of this book on my channel already, so please go watch that. Concrete Rose is the prequel to The Hate You Give, which is also by Angie Thomas, which was my favorite book of all time before reading Concrete Rose, which has taken its spot as number one favorite book of all time. The Hate You Give is also a movie. You should watch that too. It's a very good book to adaptation movie in my opinion. So yes, I love any and everything Angie Thomas. In this one, we are following Maverick, who is Star's father. In Concrete Rose, he is 17 years old. He is the son of a former gang legend, and the the only path that he thinks he has for the future is to also join a gang so that he's able to support himself and his family, as his father is currently in jail. Life isn't perfect for Maverick, but he has a girlfriend, he has a cousin who takes care of him, until one day Maverick finds out that he's a father himself. Suddenly he has a baby named Seven who is going to depend on Maverick for everything. So at this point, slinging dope is not as easy as it was before. So soon Maverick decides to go straight and just focus on raising his family. But when King Lord blood runs through you, it's not as easy as it may seem to just up and quit. So Maverick is just trying to figure out what it means to be a man. This is definitely a coming of age story. So if you're into those, you're going to love this one. We all know and love Maverick from The Hate U Give. We see how he turns out as a father. He's a great father with his total of 3 children and his wife Lisa, and everything is just wonderful for him in The Hate U Give. But you never stop and think about what Maverick had to go through before he became the father that we see and love in The Hate U Give. And Concrete Rose will tell you pretty much everything from deaths in families to having surprise children to going through breakups and friendship breakups and the desire for revenge and the need to forgive and to be forgiven. Just so many things going on in this one person's life. One thing that I love about Angie Thomas and her writing is that she does not vilify the whole gang life and drugs, because for some people that is their only way of life and the only way that they know to survive. So it's not like they're bad people. They just have to do certain things in order to survive and live their lives comfortably. Another thing that I love about Angie Thomas's writing is that she makes her characters very relatable in terms of their banter with each other, in terms of the culture that she adds into the book, to the point where I feel like these are my friends, these are my family members that I'm reading about in this book. There's of course not a universal Black experience, but a lot of the things that Black people experience is common with other Black people. And so she adds this in there and I'm like, oh yeah, that even happens to me and I'm not living in Garden Heights. This book also almost made me cry as well because it just felt so sad. I just wanted the best for Maverick. I was rooting for him throughout the entire story. Luckily, I know how he ends up because we have The Hate U Give. I was so concerned for his future. Honestly, I was like, how is he going to get out of this? How is he going to achieve all the things that he still set out to achieve? Because it was looking bad for Maverick. If you love The Hate U Give, you love the family dynamic that is portrayed in that book, I would highly recommend reading Concrete Rose because Maverick's character is so layered. He is a character that we needed in this young adult world because you really don't see like that single Black father lifestyle, let alone single fathers in general. As you can see, I could talk about this book forever. I definitely need to do a reread of this book in 2022 because I did not tab this book while reading it the first time. Again, check out my dedicated review to Concrete Rose because it's much more cohesive and put together than what I just talked about now about the book. You need to read this book if you want to experience good writing, good characters, good stories. Like, please read this book. It's everything that you need. So those are my top 10 favorite books of 2021. I loved each and every one of these books for their own specific reasons, as you heard. And I'm super excited that out of my top 6 books, 5 of those books are written by Black authors and 4 of them were Black women. So if you ever struggle to find books by Black authors, there are 5 for you right there. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. I'm hoping that 2022 is another good reading year for me so that I can struggle again to pick my top 10 favorite reads of the year. If any of these books ended up being on your top books of the year, let me know. Also, if you made it to the end of this video, comment below some roses to represent my favorite read of the year and of all time, Concrete Rose. If you like this video, please give it a big like, comment down below, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, make sure the notification bell is turned on so that you don't miss any uploads from me. Link down in the description box are all my social media accounts outside of YouTube. So we have my Bookstagram, my Twitter account, my Goodreads, my Storygraph, everything your heart desires is going to be linked down below in the description box. I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.